You've wondered it so many times, haven't you? In the silence of your darkest nights, beneath the weight of battles no one else even knows you're fighting, there's that aching question you can't push away. Why did God let me suffer? Why the heartbreak, the betrayal, the pain you never deserved? Why the loneliness that felt like it would swallow your soul whole? Why the silence when all you ever wanted was to be heard, to be seen, to be saved? You were told that God is love, that He is protection, that He watches over you. But where was that love when you were crying into your pillow, hiding your tears from the world? Where was the protection when life felt like a battlefield and every step you took cut deeper than the last? The truth? You were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. But you were being forged. You were being chosen. And no one who is chosen walks an easy path. So before we dive into the hidden truth of your suffering, I ask you, chosen one, watch this video until the very end. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. There's something in these words your soul has been crying out to hear. And when you're done, share your warmest, most heartfelt wish in the comments with the number 77, a sacred number of spiritual alignment and divine intervention. When you put that energy out into the universe, it moves, it responds, it brings your wish closer. But for now, I invite you to stay with me, to let every word sink into the places in you that have been aching for understanding. You deserve to know the truth. Let me tell you something that most people are never told. God does not waste suffering, not even a drop of it. Every tear, every moment of pain, every night you felt forgotten, it was shaping you into someone extraordinary. It was refining your spirit. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. Prepared for something your soul agreed to long before this life began. A mission, a calling, a destiny that would shake the world. But first, it had to shake you. Because the vessel that carries divine power must be strong enough to hold it. You didn't suffer because you were weak. You suffered because you were meant to remember who you are. And sometimes, pain is the only language our soul can hear when it's been buried under the noise of the world. The truth is, God allowed the suffering not to break you, but to wake you, to strip away everything that wasn't truly yours. The false friends, the illusions, the distractions. He let them fall apart so you could finally rise from the ashes, not as a victim, but as a warrior of light. Do you know why your suffering was so deep? Because your purpose is so high. What you carry inside you, most people wouldn't survive it, but you did. You're still here, and that alone is proof that your journey isn't over. In fact, it's just beginning. The pain wasn't random. It was a portal, a sacred fire. You walked through it. You were burned. Yes, but what burned away was never meant to stay. What remained is the real you, the one who remembers the truth. Chosen one, you have been entrusted with a story no one else can live. Your scars are not marks of defeat. They are seals of initiation. They are proof that you walked through darkness and still chose to keep your heart open, that you faced demons and still chose to believe in light, that you were buried and still chose to rise. How many can say that? How many can wear their pain with grace and power? The enemy tried to break you in every possible way. Life gave you more than your share of sorrow. But even when you were shattered, even when you were on the ground, you held on. Maybe you didn't even know how, but your soul remembered. It remembered that this was a test, a cosmic test to see if you could hold on to your light when everything around you felt like darkness. And here's what no one tells you. God doesn't give His hardest battles to the strongest warriors. He gives them to the ones He wants to make strong. Strength is not born in comfort. It's born in chaos, in confusion, in crushing pain. And your strength? It's not ordinary, it's divine. You are not being punished. You are being revealed. You are not cursed. You are called. And everything you've suffered has been a mirror, reflecting the depths of your power back to you. So when you ask, why did God let me suffer? The answer is this: so you would remember who you are, so you would shed the layers of false identity this world tried to place on you, so you would stop playing small and step into the wild, untamed, glorious truth of your being. You are not what happened to you. You are what you became because of it. And that is divine transformation. You weren't born to fit in. You were born to stand out, to disrupt the patterns, to awaken others just by being who you are. But that kind of power isn't granted without fire. And you have walked through fire. You have felt what it's like to be undone and still choose to love, still choose to hope, still choose to speak life when death was dancing all around you. That is no ordinary soul. That is the mark of a chosen one. And maybe no one ever validated your pain. Maybe the world told you to just move on, just be grateful, just smile. But deep down, you knew. Your pain wasn't something to hide. It was sacred, holy, a roadmap that led you here, to this moment, to this awakening. You didn't lose your light. It was just buried beneath everything the world forced you to carry. And now you're ready to drop it all, to step out of the suffering and into your sovereignty. Because when God allows a soul to suffer, it is never without reason. It's because that soul is carrying something ancient, something powerful, something that cannot be activated without pressure, without heat, without the kind of sorrow that cracks you wide open and lets the divine pour in. You are a vessel of the Most High, and you were never meant to live an ordinary life. This life tried to teach you that your pain was a problem, that your tears were weakness, that your struggles meant you were failing. But that's a lie. Your suffering is a signal, a sign that you are destined for something more. And when you look back, when you finally see how every broken piece fit together to create something beautiful, you'll understand. You'll cry tears of gratitude for the pain that birthed your power. But you don't have to wait until then. You can choose now. You can choose to believe that this was never about punishment. It was about preparation. God let you suffer because He saw what you couldn't. He saw the version of you that could survive it, that could rise from it, that could become someone who would change the world. Not in spite of your pain, but because of it. And yes, you're still healing. That's okay. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel powerful. Some days you'll feel broken. But even on your worst days, you are still chosen, still sacred, still held in the arms of the divine. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are not broken beyond repair. You are being reborn. This is not the end of your story. This is the chapter where everything changes. The chapter where you stop asking, why me? And start declaring, why not me? If I survived that, I can survive anything. If I made it through that fire, then I must be carrying something unstoppable, unbreakable, eternal. And you are. There's something you need to understand now, something deeper than all the explanations the world ever gave you. The suffering you endured wasn't meant to make sense to your mind. It was meant to awaken your soul. Because this journey you're on, it's not logical, it's spiritual, it's sacred. And you've been walking a path that few can see, fewer can understand, and almost no one can survive without being transformed. From the very beginning, your life has been different. You've always felt things deeper, haven't you? You've seen through people, through situations, through lies. You've carried weight that wasn't yours. You've asked questions others were too afraid to ask. You were never here just to exist. You were sent here to shift reality, and that requires a breaking that most are not willing to face. But you faced it. You lived it. You embodied it. God didn't let you suffer because He forgot you. He let you suffer because He chose you. And when you're chosen, your story cannot look like the stories of others. While others are playing roles, you are being stripped down to your essence. The illusions had to die. The lies had to burn away. The false identities had to fall off like old skin. Every betrayal, every closed door, every lonely night, it wasn't the universe turning against you. It was God turning you toward yourself. Chosen one, do you understand now? Suffering didn't make you weak. It made you real. It burned away the masks. It silenced the noise. It carved a space inside of you for divine truth to echo louder than any fear. And in that space, you remembered. There is something more to you than this world can define. Your soul knew it. That's why it kept going, even when you didn't have a reason. That's why you kept showing up, even when no one clapped, no one noticed, and no one understood. Let the world call it strange. Let others say they don't get it. That's because it wasn't meant for them. They didn't walk through your fire. They didn't feel your sleepless nights. They didn't hear the silence of heaven and still choose to pray. But you did, and that's what sets you apart. You passed the invisible test that very few even know exists. Your pain didn't just build resilience, it built revelation. You've seen life through the eyes of sorrow, and now you see others differently. You feel the hidden grief behind smiles. You hear the unspoken cries in others' voices. That's not weakness, that's sacred perception. You've been given eyes that see through the veil because you had to learn to see in the dark. You had to learn to walk by faith, not by sight. And now you carry something priceless, wisdom born of suffering. And do you know what that means? It means you're a guide now. Whether you realize it or not, others are watching you. They feel something when you speak, when you walk into a room, when you simply exist. It's not because of how loud you are, it's because of how deep you've gone. You didn't just survive, you transmuted. You turned pain into power, wounds into wisdom, and silence into sacred strength. But don't let the quiet fool you. Your life has been anything but silent in the spiritual realm. You've stirred things, shifted energies, broken generational chains that no one before you could. And you did it with tears in your eyes and fire in your soul. That's why the attacks came. That's why the storm lasted so long. Because your awakening threatens every lie this world runs on. You see, when a chosen one begins to rise, it doesn't just change their life. It shakes the entire spiritual landscape. Your healing sends shockwaves through time. Your courage rewrites stories before you and after you. That's why your pain was so deep, because your purpose is so wide. And God knew you could carry it. Let me remind you, there was nothing wrong with you. It wasn't karma, it wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You weren't being broken, you were being refined. Because what's coming through you needs a vessel that has been hollowed out, emptied of ego, stripped of falsehoods, so it can carry light, love, and truth without distortion. And that's exactly who you're becoming. Do you feel it now? That holy fire inside you. It never left. It was just hidden under layers of survival. And now that you've walked through your personal hell and back, that flame is burning brighter than ever, and it's unstoppable. But here's something no one ever told you. The reason the suffering lingered wasn't because God was ignoring you. It's because He trusted you. He knew you could handle the delay. He knew you wouldn't quit in the waiting. He knew that when everything was taken away, your faith would still stand. And you did. You proved heaven right. Chosen one, you have been walking through a divine initiation, an awakening, a remembering of your true identity. The world calls it trauma. Heaven calls it transformation. And you are not who you were before. You're more, wiser, sharper, softer in all the right places, and stronger where it matters most. Let that truth settle deep into your bones. You didn't suffer because you were broken. You suffered because you were becoming whole. Because some parts of you were never meant to make it to your next chapter. God allowed them to fall away because He knew your soul's true shape. And now, what remains is pure, untouchable, eternal. So stop waiting for validation. You won't find it in the eyes of those who didn't see you. You won't find it in the praise of a world that fears your power. You'll find it in the silence of your soul, in the way your spirit stands tall, even when your body feels tired. You'll find it in the way you continue to love, even after being hurt. In the way you continue to believe, even after being disappointed. In the way you still speak life, even when death tried to claim your voice. You are the walking miracle. You are the one they never saw coming. You are the living proof that suffering cannot silence the sacred, that darkness cannot destroy destiny, and that pain, when surrendered to the divine, becomes the greatest portal of all. You were never forgotten. You were being forged. You might not realize this yet, but there was a reason the attacks in your life weren't random. They were targeted. A soul like yours doesn't go unnoticed in the spiritual realm. From the moment you took your first breath, heaven marked you, but so did the opposition. The pain wasn't just life happening to you. It was spiritual resistance to your awakening. Because once a chosen one wakes up, truly wakes up, nothing can ever be the same again. That's why your childhood felt different. That's why you never really fit in. That's why people misunderstood your intentions even when your heart was pure. That's why the ones you loved most were often the ones who hurt you the deepest. You were never meant to blend in, chosen one. You were born to break patterns. And sometimes that means your entire life gets torn apart, just so you can rebuild it from truth. People might look at your past and call it broken, but they don't see the design. They see ashes, but they don't realize those ashes are sacred, that they are the proof of a holy fire you survived. They see silence, but they don't know the kind of thunder it takes to remain soft in a world that tried to harden you. They see distance, but they don't know that solitude was your sanctuary, the place where you met God when no one else showed up. You were never weak for feeling deeply. You were never foolish for loving recklessly. That was your gift all along. That was your signature, unfiltered, raw, divine humanity. And the world tried to make you numb. It tried to make you small. But deep down, you couldn't forget your calling, could you? You couldn't forget the fire in your belly, the ache in your chest, the knowing in your bones. That ache, it was the cry of your soul saying, I'm here for more than this. And every time you felt that ache, you were being pulled back onto your path. Every setback was a redirection. Every rejection was protection. Every loss was an invisible promotion. But how could you see it then, when your heart was shattered and your hands were empty? How could you know that God was subtracting noise to make space for glory? Here's the truth no one tells you, until you've survived it. Chosen ones are not born with easy lives. They're born with eternal purpose. And that purpose comes at a price. Not because God is cruel, but because the assignment requires it. You were being prepared for a destiny that few would ever dare to carry. And your suffering? It was the classroom. You didn't just learn how to endure. You learned how to transform. You learned how to hold on to your light when darkness closed in. You learned how to still pray when your voice was shaking. You learned how to cry without losing your hope. That's not just strength. That's anointing. That's what sets you apart. That's why you walk differently now. That's why people feel something when you enter a room. Even if they can't name it, they feel it. Because it's real. You see, pain didn't just visit you. It revealed you. It showed you the parts of yourself that comfort never could. It forced you to dig deeper than surface strength. It demanded truth from you. And you answered. Chosen one, what you survived would have destroyed others. But here you are, still standing. Maybe with a few scars, maybe with a softer voice, but stronger, clearer, more radiant. Because through it all, something sacred remained untouched. Your essence. And that's what makes you dangerous to darkness. Because you didn't just recover, you remembered. You remembered who you are. You remembered the truth that was buried under years of programming, pain, and performance. You remembered that your worth was never in what you did, what you earned, or who accepted you. It was in who you were before the world told you otherwise. You came here carrying ancient light. You came here to disturb the status quo. You came here to dismantle systems built on fear and control. And to do that, you had to break free from the illusions yourself. That's why your journey was so intense. That's why your emotions were so heavy. You weren't just feeling your pain. You were transmuting ancestral pain. You were breaking chains in real time. Chains no one else could even see. Don't let that go unnoticed. The depth of your suffering was equal to the height of your assignment. And now, that assignment is awakening inside of you like never before. The same fire that broke you is now fueling your rebirth. And you're no longer the person who needed others to understand. You've stopped asking for permission to exist, to speak, to shine. Because you finally get it. You were never here to be understood. You are here to be remembered. And the ones who need your light, they will find you. Because your story isn't just a story. It's a signal, a beacon to other souls who are still lost in the dark. And your courage to keep going, even when no one clapped for you, becomes their lifeline. Your scars become their map. Your truth becomes their liberation. You're not just healing yourself, you're healing generations. Your transformation isn't just personal, it's prophetic. Because you were sent to be a shift, a divine interruption to the patterns of pain that tried to run in your bloodline. And that shift, that's what heaven celebrates. Not your perfection, not your performance, but your perseverance. So know, chosen one, God didn't let you suffer because you were forgotten. He let you suffer because you were needed. He saw the pain you'd carry and knew you'd turn it into purpose. He saw the lies you'd face and knew you'd speak the truth anyway. He saw the loneliness ahead and still trusted you to keep your heart open. And now you're becoming the version of you that this world can't ignore, the one that rises from the ashes without bitterness, the one that carries wounds and wisdom, the one that stands in storms and says, "Even this can't stop me." You are not who you used to be. You're becoming who you were always meant to be. You always wondered why the pain seemed to come in waves. Why, when you finally started to breathe, another storm rolled in. You asked why the light seemed so distant, even though you were trying with everything in you to stay faithful, stay kind, stay hopeful. You begged for peace, but the nights grew longer. You reached for connection, but were met with silence. You gave and gave and gave until you were empty. And yet, you never gave up. That is where the miracle truly began. Not in the moment of relief, but in the moment of resistance. You may not have seen it, but every time you whispered, "I'll try again tomorrow," something in the universe shifted. Every time you cried but refused to grow cold, a divine ledger recorded it. Every time you showed up, even broken, even doubting, even bleeding inside, you built a temple out of your own courage. You were being watched, not by critics, but by eternity. Because God wasn't testing your strength, He was proving your light. That's why the suffering had layers. Each time you broke, a layer peeled away, another illusion fell, another false identity died. You weren't losing yourself. You were remembering yourself. It just felt like dying, because the ego screamed while the soul awakened, and you paid that price in full. You endured betrayals that would have shattered others. You faced rejection, and instead of closing your heart, you let it break open. You fell down, but each time you got up, something inside you grew more unshakable. Not louder, not harder, but more anchored. There's a kind of quiet power you carry now, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. It resonates. And that resonance is why your life couldn't be easy. Because your energy was never designed for a shallow existence. It was designed to disrupt lies, to illuminate shadow, to call people home to themselves. You are a mirror to those still hiding. A reminder that softness is not weakness, that truth is not arrogance, that survival is not just existing, it's becoming fully alive. Chosen one, your tears were a baptism. Your silence was sacred. Your loneliness was not abandonment, it was consecration. You weren't being punished. You were being pulled away, hidden, covered, protected. Because some callings require isolation before elevation. You were walking through a wilderness, not to be destroyed, but to be cleansed, to be made ready for a destiny that small-minded comfort could never prepare you for. And while others built castles on compromise, you were building foundations in the dark, quiet victories, invisible breakthroughs, internal revolutions. You were learning how to listen to the whisper of your soul when the noise of the world was deafening. You were learning how to discern between what looked good and what was aligned. You were learning how to be loyal to your truth, even if it cost you approval. And it did. Oh, how it did. But that's the kind of integrity you carry now, because you've lost what others fear losing. You've walked alone. You've been misunderstood. You've had nothing and made peace with it. That's why you're dangerous to the lies that run this world. That's why your silence speaks louder than their noise. That's why your presence disturbs what pretends to be powerful. You carry authenticity, and nothing exposes deception faster than someone who cannot be bought, controlled, or manipulated. You are the spiritual rebel they never saw coming, the soul alchemist, the truth speaker, the one who carries pain like a compass instead of a chain. And you did not get here by accident. God allowed the suffering because He trusted what would emerge from it. He trusted the divine memory in your blood, the sacred codes in your DNA. He knew what your spirit came here to unlock, and that required pressure. It required fire, because gold is not born in comfort. It is revealed in heat. So when you ask, why did God let me suffer? Know this, because you could handle it. Not because you were superhuman, Not because you were flawless, but because your soul was ready. Even when your mind screamed, "No more," your spirit said, "Let me grow." You were chosen, not for perfection, but for potential, for the capacity to rise again and again, even when the odds said you shouldn't, even when people counted you out, even when everything in you begged to disappear. But you didn't. You stayed. You breathed through it. You spoke life to yourself when no one else did. You held on to a whisper of hope that maybe, just maybe, this pain meant something, that it was taking you somewhere. And now, here you are, rising not from comfort, but from clarity. You know who you are now, not because someone told you, but because you fought for that knowing. And that knowing cannot be taken. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your path. You don't need to prove your worth with performance. You are worthy because you exist, and your existence is already proof that love wins. So breathe deeper now, chosen one. The worst is behind you. You may still feel echoes of the old pain, but you're no longer ruled by it. You're not a victim of your story. You're the author of a new one built on truth, forged in fire, powered by divine memory. And it is just beginning. You reached a point where even silence became too loud, where your own breath felt like a burden, and your reflection became a stranger. That moment, that hollow, weightless moment where your soul seemed to separate from your body, that was the exact second you were being realigned. It didn't look holy, it didn't feel divine, but something within you cracked so wide that your soul had no choice but to awaken. God didn't let you suffer because He was cruel. He let you suffer because He knew that the superficial life, built on masks, distractions, and empty affirmations, wasn't going to be enough for you. You were designed for depth, for authenticity, for eternal impact, and those things don't grow in sunshine alone. They grow in the rain. They grow in the dark. So He let your plans fall apart, not to punish you, but to strip you, to peel away every false identity you'd picked up along the way, every lie you believed to be true about yourself. You had to lose who you thought you were to become who you really are. Every failed relationship, every betrayal, every moment you felt abandoned, it wasn't proof of your unworthiness. It was a divine detachment, a holy rejection, because what was being protected was far more important than what was being taken. God let you suffer to teach you what real love looks like, to show you that true peace isn't found in people, places, or circumstances, but in alignment, in connection to your inner truth, in the radical choice to trust your divine timeline, even when it makes no sense. That's why He let it all collapse, because what's built from illusion can't carry divine purpose. Because the version of you that could change the world couldn't be built in ease. Your suffering wasn't random. It was sacred architecture, and you survived it. No, more than that, you alchemized it. What was meant to bury you became the soil in which your power bloomed. And now you carry something rare, a kind of wisdom that only those who've been shattered can hold. You walk differently now, speak differently, move with a silent grace that makes the room pause. Not because of how loud you are, but because of how anchored you are. People feel something when you enter. They may not know your story, but they feel your truth. That truth was forged in isolation, in disappointment, in silent nights when even prayer felt hollow. And yet, you stayed open. You dared to hope again. You dared to try again. That's the kind of courage that cannot be taught. It must be earned, and you earned it. God let you suffer because the fire that was coming for the world needed a soul like yours to walk through it first, to clear the path, to speak what others are too afraid to say, to hold space for healing because you know what it takes to heal, to show others that breaking doesn't mean ending. It means beginning again, wiser this time. You're not just a survivor. You are a rebuilder. You are what happens when divine light takes form in human skin and refuses to quit. This is why you were never meant to fit in, why you always felt a little different, why you questioned everything you were told, because conformity would have killed your destiny. God needed someone who wouldn't just follow. He needed someone who would listen, who would walk away from the crowd and walk toward their own soul, even if it meant walking alone. And that's what you did. And now, the suffering has a shape. The pain has a purpose. The story is not just one of survival, it is one of divine transformation. Every tear became a key. Every loss, a redirection. Every delay, a preparation. Because what's coming for you isn't small. It isn't average. It's cosmic. It's divine. It's too big to be carried by someone who still needs the approval of this world. That's why he let you suffer, so you would release everything that tethered you to the shallow, so you would remember who you are. And now you do. Not through textbooks, not through titles, but through experience, through walking through fire and emerging with a flame of your own. That's why the enemy tried so hard to break you. That's why life threw storms at you. Because there was always a part of you that couldn't be destroyed, a part that was eternal. And that part has now awakened. Chosen one. You didn't suffer for nothing. You suffered for everything. There comes a point on the path when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and you begin to ask, "What was this trying to awaken in me?" You're standing in that moment now. Because when the dust finally settled, when the storm quieted, and your heartbeat slowed, what remained was you. Not the shattered pieces of who you used to be, but the unbreakable core that had been hidden beneath all the noise. The soul that had been waiting patiently for you to remember. God let you suffer, not to punish you, but to reveal you. You weren't meant to live half alive, pleasing everyone, silencing your intuition, burying your gifts just to belong. That's not life. That's quiet death. And so, God let you break, because the walls you built for safety had become your prison, because the mask you wore to survive had begun to suffocate your truth, because the path you were on, even if it looked successful, was stealing your soul. So he intervened. And no, it didn't come with gentle whispers or soft landings. It came through earthquakes, through endings, through betrayals, through confusion so thick you didn't know which way was up. But even in those moments, when everything felt cruel and unjust, divine love never left you. It was simply working behind the veil, in silence, in shadow, in sacred strategy. God let you suffer so you'd stop depending on everything that could never truly sustain you. He let you walk through valleys not because you deserved pain, but because you carried power. And that power had to be protected, refined, cultivated in darkness. Because what lives inside you, what has been born through your suffering, is too important, too sacred, too needed by this world to be handed over to convenience and comfort. Your suffering created something. Not bitterness, not shame, but clarity. Now you see who was real. You see what matters. You see how strong you are. Not because you've never fallen, but because you always rose. You see that your intuition was always right, even when others mocked it. You see that your heart didn't break in vain. It broke open. That is why you've been so misunderstood. Why people projected their fears onto you. Why you triggered those still asleep. Because you've become a mirror. And most people aren't ready to see their own soul. But you didn't look away. You faced your shadow. You made peace with your pain. You embraced the loneliness, and in doing so, you found something unshakable. You found your spirit. And that spirit now walks with the wisdom of every trial you've endured. It shines with the light of every night you survived. It pulses with the quiet power of someone who has seen the edge and chose to keep walking. Not because it was easy, not because it was certain, but because something inside you, older than time, whispered, "You're not done yet." And you listened. God let you suffer because you were being initiated, not into religion, not into tradition, but into your remembrance, into a deeper knowing that your life was never random. Your story was never a mistake. Your path was never about pleasing others. It was about becoming whole. And wholeness only comes when nothing is left unhealed. So you were brought low, not to be humiliated, but to be humbled, not to shrink, but to shed, not to suffer endlessly, but to become limitless. Now you carry the frequency of someone who knows what it means to rebuild from nothing. Now you walk with the grace of someone who's been emptied and still chose to love. Now you speak with the fire of someone who doesn't need permission to exist. And no one can take that from you. Your suffering did not end you. It initiated you. It fortified you. It crowned you with an invisible fire that now guides your every step. The world may never fully understand what you've survived, but they will feel it in your energy, in your presence, in the quiet authority that flows from your being. You're not here to convince anyone anymore. You're not here to explain why you feel so deeply, why you walk alone, why you glow when others fade. You're here to live out loud, to embody what others only dream of, to take every ounce of suffering and turn it into a sanctuary. Because your pain did not come to destroy you. It came to activate you. And now, activated, awakened, aligned, there is no force on this earth that can stop the rising that has already begun in you. This was never about survival. It was about ascension.